I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Luminance Pencils from Caran and doing a tutorial using these pencils on this chickadee. You guys know I've used these pencils before, but I always use them in combination with my polychromos. I love the white Luminance pencil. It's my absolute favorite. I totally stocked up on those because I love them so much. If you just wanted to try a few of these out, you can buy them open stock. I know dickblick.com and Jerry's Artorama both carry them here in the United States. One of the big questions that you guys keep asking me is if they're really worth the money, because they are so much more expensive than a lot of the other pencils. These pencils cost more mainly because they're so light fast. So much testing was done in creating the formula, like a lot of testing was done to make these colors very light fast. If you're not familiar with what light fast means, it basically means your colors aren't going to be as prone to fading over time. That is something that can happen with a lot of different brands. Over the years, some of the colors have a tendency to really fade, so your artwork can end up looking very different than how it started off. This company is the most light fast. This is what they're really focused on these Luminance pencils. I was a little bit concerned with the fact that the largest set is only 76 pencils, because I'm a big fan of buy the biggest set that you can get so you have as many colors available to you as possible. The thing is, the colors available here are colors that I use regularly. Like, I didn't have a problem. There was never a time when I worked on this piece anyway where there wasn't a color I wanted available or a color that I could create using a couple of other colors in layering. I do a lot of layering, so that isn't that big of a deal for me anyway, but I definitely really liked the selection of colors available in this set. It's not full of 3 or 4 different shades of fluorescent yellow that I'm never going to use, like what I've got in my Prismacolor set, for example. So as far as colors go, I really did like the color choices and had a lot of natural colors that I do use every day, so that made me happy. Especially with a lot of the browns and creams, they really have some nice colors that I don't have in my other sets of pencils. And so if you're doing skin tones and pet portraits and that sort of thing where you need these more natural tones, this set really does have some good colors in there. The only time that I've used Luminance in the past was in combination with my polychromos. So with this piece, I wanted to do something that was 100% Luminance, so I kind of had a better idea of how everything would blend together and how much detail I could get and that sort of thing. These pencils are wax-based, but they don't crumble like the Prismacolors do. And in a couple of weeks, I will have a full video comparing the Luminance to the Prisma, so I'll go in more depth then. But these pencils do not break, did not crumble. They sharpen easy every time. I had no problem holding a point on them. They worked well for blending because so many of the colors are very creamy, and they also did a really good job with the detail. They don't get as fine of a point as like the polychromos, which is a harder lead, but they still held enough of a point that I could get a lot more detail than I expected to with a wax-based pencil. So, and I will talk a bit more about all of this as we get into the tutorial. If you guys are new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday. Starting this week, I will have social media tips for you guys every Thursday and artist vlogs each weekend. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of these new videos, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr. All those social media sites links are below in the video description. You can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is that I am currently working on. Now, on to the tutorial. To start off for this piece, I have taken a very pale gray and covered the entire background with this. This is just the base of many layers to come on this background. The entire time that I'm working on the background, I'm using a very light hand. Can't stress that enough. You don't want to damage the paper. I've got to do so many layers here that if I were to push very hard and flatten that paper out at all, it's not going to take as many layers. So with a very light hand, I'm now layering in some of the greens and darker grays that I want for the background. You'll notice for the blurry effect that I'm going for, I'm leaving a lot of circles in the background, and I'm letting them be very defined at this point. Later on, I'm going to blend some of those out, so I won't end up keeping all of these circles, but for now it works out best if I let them stay pretty harsh in contrast to everything else. I'm using a violet gray shade for all of these circles, and you can see I'm leaving little gaps of the lighter gray in between so that I can kind of separate them and know where one begins and one ends. I'm also coming back through with some of the darker grays and some blues into that upper section, and I'm just barely overlapping into the violet colors and the grays. As I work into more of the greens, I'm again overlapping some of these colors so that they do blend nicely when I come on with paint thinner, which I am now doing. I'm using a Taklon Filbert brush and Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner to blend here. And I'm just lightly going over with a little bit of paint thinner on the brush onto the paper to blend all of these colors out. You can see the colors come out a little bit darker as I'm going. Once I blend that out and it dries, I'm now going back through and layering more colors. I'm using more of a grayish green on top of the brighter greens to tone those down and darkening up a lot of these areas. I'm letting them be a lot more bold than I had the first few layers. And as bold as these are, they're not going to stay this harsh as I keep layering on top of layer. My first several layers, especially when I'm doing a background, look terribly ugly when I work in colored pencil. And really it just comes with practice and time, understanding that it's okay that it looks this bad at this stage. Once you've done it a few times, you'll know a bit more what to expect, so it's not quite so scary. At this point, all of the contrast is pretty harsh. I'll tone that down later, but I need it to be harsh now so that when I do blend on top of it with more of the light colors, that they'll still show up. I then go back through with the paint thinner and blend this layer out as well. I'll put a link in the video description that will show you more about blending with paint thinner if you're not familiar with it. I am now using a white pencil to lighten up all of that background. I'm not putting white everywhere, mostly over those circle areas that are going to end up being blurry, and I'm letting that white blend into some of the dark areas as well. I'm going to come back through with the paint thinner and blend that out again. I'm letting some of this white kind of smudge onto the dark areas as I'm blending. I'm now layering on top of some of those violet circles with darker grays. And what this is doing is creating more depth. I don't want them all to be the same color or it'll look very flat. By adding some of these darker grays, I'm creating a whole lot more depth. After blending all of that out with a soft paintbrush, I'm again going back through and darkening up some of these areas. Another thing that I'm doing now is starting to layer some of the grays over the edges of the pinks, and that helps them kind of fade out so that it's not just a perfect circle. This creates a bit of a ring around some of those circles, which is the look that I'm going for. I spent almost the same amount of time working on the background of this as I did on the detail of the flowers and the bird. It's really important when you're doing backgrounds, don't rush them. Keep building up those layers until you get the depth that you want. It'll make a big, big difference in the end result. I want to mention again, throughout this entire background, I am keeping a very, very light hand. I don't want to push hard and end up damaging the paper. If you push really hard, you flatten out that paper and you're not going to be able to do as many layers as you would have otherwise. You flatten out all of the tooth of the paper. So definitely want to keep a light hand as you're doing this in this method. One of the things that I found I really was happy about with these Luminance pencils, I didn't end up with a wax bloom issue at all like I do with the Prismacolors, and these are a wax-based pencil, but at no point was that really an issue with these. I am now moving on to the flowers. One of the things to notice here, I've got to leave a lot of these areas completely white, which you don't have happen that often on a piece, but I do have a lot of very white zones. So for those areas, I'm going to use a white colored pencil and block those in first. That way, when I go on top with other colors and I'm blending, those areas do stay very stark white. I found that I really like how well these pencils burnish, and so for the detail on the leaves, the chickadee, and the flowers, I hardly used any paint thinner. For the most part, I was just burnishing. If you're not familiar with what the term burnishing means, I will put a link in the video description on my video that talks more about blending colored pencils. The very, very short description of what burnishing means is just applying more pressure with the pencil to blend that way. As I worked to keep a point on my pencil, I used a piece of fine sandpaper and just sanded down the tips of the pencil so that I didn't have to continuously sharpen them, and that helped the pencils to last quite a bit longer. One of the things that I do as I work, I'm always using at least 3 shades in each petal or each leaf or whatever it is that I'm doing. When you layer many, many shades like this, you do create a whole lot more depth, and they end up looking a lot more realistic than if you just use 1 or 2 shades. Another big tip that I have, try not to get too hung up on your color being exactly perfect. Really, your contrast and your detail just being accurate is so much more important. I mean, all around everything is important, and you do want to go for close on your colors, but as far as them being exact, I see a lot of people that focus so much on worrying about the exact color that they lose sight of the overall importance of the actual contrast and the other detail in the piece. Petals that were in the background that I wanted to kind of fade out, I used some of the colors that I had used from the background, the greens and grays, over them, and that pushed them back further, again creating more depth. When you're working on something that has a lot of detail, spend a lot more time looking at your reference photo than you do your actual work. I see a lot of students that will start off focused so much on what they're doing that they completely ignore their reference photo, and things kind of come out not so hot that way. So definitely pay attention to your reference photo when you're working on something that has detail like this. Working with these colors, a lot of the darker grays and browns did have a very scratchy feel to them. I know a lot of you guys had asked me about that. And yeah, they almost felt like working with a charcoal, but the end result ended up being just the same. They burnished fine, everything was fine. They just felt a little bit different to work with. They didn't feel as creamy going on, but they did blend real well. So to me, as long as the end result looked fine, I wasn't too worried about it. Pencils, I was able to sharpen them to a really fine point, and at no point did I have an issue with that point breaking or with wood casing splitting or anything like that. They really were very, very nice to work with. And on these darker petals, you can see that I'm first laying down the dark colors before I burnish white over them. Also going back through with some of the darker colors around the edges of the flower petals to create a little bit more texture there. I initially have them really, really smooth, so I definitely want to create some more ridges and bumps in those to make them look more natural. Another thing I noticed with these pencils, normally when working in colored pencil, I end up putting a piece of tracing paper under my hand to keep from smudging the color or having that color come off onto the side of my hand. That really wasn't needed here. Moving on to the bird, I started by blocking in his eye and made sure that I left that little white shine mark white before putting the black in, otherwise that never would have gotten light enough. Same thing on his head. While the cap of feathers on his head is black, that shine mark, I want to make sure that's light first and put the black around it. If I were to paint the whole thing or fill the whole thing in with black, the white shine mark on his head would never get light enough, even with these opaque pencils. Notice that I've kept the feathers on the head and throughout the piece, really, for the chest as well. I keep a very sketchy look so that it looks like those little tiny feathers. When you do this, you really want to pay attention to your reference photo and make sure those little sketchy marks are going in the right direction. If you're just putting random lines all over the place, it won't quite look right. For the feathers on the wings, I am working individually feather by feather as I go and really paying attention to the detail here. For the body, I've laid down the general shades of where the lights and darks are going to go, and this is really the base. I'm going to come back through and put more detail for the individual feathers, but I need this to kind of be shaded in where those lights and darks go first. Just like on the head, as I work on the body, I am paying close attention to my reference photo to see where these little lines for those soft body feathers go. I'm using some of the darker brown and gray pencils to create those shadows. When you're working on details like this where you're putting in a lot of these lines, you want to try to think of them more in terms of actual shadows instead of just hard, heavy lines. Remember, spending a lot of time on detail is only worth it if the detail is correct. If you're putting a ton of harsh lines in here, it just ends up looking like the feathers are very wiry, which is not the look you want when you've got a soft bird like this. For the flight feathers, I've drawn in some of the darker lines first and then done some shading in between those. Then I go back and forth, darkening them up, and then I'll come back through with the white, more opaque pencil and pull out the highlights on those. The tail feather is done pretty much the same way, just on a larger scale. I used paint thinner over areas of the bird that seemed a little bit too gritty to get that nice soft look, and then I used a very sharp white pencil this time to better define some of the highlights and details on those feathers. Legs were done very, very much like the branches were, first layering brown and then a bluish color over them and then edging them with the lighter colors. Using more colors, again, creates more depth, so I will rarely use just one color. And that finishes up this piece. I will have in the next week or two the Prismacolor versus Luminance video, which will go more in depth with each of these pencils. So look out for that one. Thanks for watching, guys. If any of you have used these Luminance pencils, let me know in the comments below. Did you enjoy working with them as much as I did? I am personally a huge fan, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say too. Don't forget to head back tomorrow where I will be showing you guys how to set up a Facebook fan page for your artwork. I'll see you tomorrow.